Fellow Ghanaians, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. So, there's been lots of conversations about the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation's decision to acquire some 37% in AKER and 70% in AGM Petroleum, as in the blocks they operate. That has generated lots of issues. Civil society groups have been raising questions. And tonight, we're privileged to get answers to most of the questions, in fact, all the questions that have been raised when it comes to this particular deal. My name is Winston Amor, and this is Upfront on the JoyNews channel. And we're privileged to be joined by the CEO of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, Dr. KK Sapon. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening. Is it Winston?
Yes, Winston.
Okay, good evening, young man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How about you?
Pretty fine. Thank you.
Good. So let's get into the conversation. And I know there's been lots of talk about this particular deal involving GNPC, AKER and AGM. What's important is why this deal?
First of all, let me extend my best wishes to Ghanaians, especially those who have tuned in to listening to this program. And let me thank JoyNews for giving me the opportunity to try and explain the relevant issues. First of all, you notice that I've been very quiet.
Sure.
But that's my style. Let them have field day, let them make their points, and then you assemble them and be able to do justice to them rather than responding to every little noise which comes around. So it's not that we didn't have anything to say. We indeed had lots to say. I must say that obviously any new thing faces resistance. Is something that is you easily find in the management literature. People resist change, and anything new raises doubts. People are concerned. It's natural, the fear of the unknown. Yeah. But I think it's important as Ghanaians that we try and look at things objectively, not to be moved by emotions, assemble the facts, and tell the truth. And I think that is very, very important.
What are the facts?
Yeah, I'll come to that. I'm just leading you into that. I want to say that deliberate distortions are very unhelpful to the populace, especially people who have access to media, and they distort. I believe we must have constructive comments, reasonable, objective conversations, so that we can all take lessons from what we discuss and be able to shape policy. That has been my approach over the years as a corporate executive. I try to listen more, talk less, and at the end of the day, feed into my decisions the reasonable comments which come up. You notice that this issue is not just, I don't see it as a party issue. I see it as a Ghanaian issue. It's a Ghana issue for our country. Interestingly, the idea of driving GNPC to operatorship has been on the drawing cast for a very long time. And I think more so GNPC, having been there and looked at the records, is nothing new. Except that to me, the pace of getting there is quite worrisome. As we've been too slow. We've been paying just lip service to it. There are people who say that go to Technip and build capacity. Technip is not an operator. Technip FMC does a number of things, especially soft scenes. It's going to be a subset. So we're looking at having an operator who's got a very composite. I want to look at a value chain from A to Z, somebody who can give me that kind of exposure. That has been the issue. Before I come to the substantive issue, I want to give a background to the issue of change and what people resist and my own experience I think I've been in the public sector for the past 42 years. I'm not a newcomer. I know the drama, the political drama, the social drama, employee drama, what have you. I just try and keep a cool head and make sense out of whatever comes up and make a decision. When I worked in Cocoa Board, I joined PBC in 1990, moved to Cocoa Board in 1994, before my 40th birthday, as a Deputy Chief Executive, Finance and Admin. Anybody who has a bit of history will know what it was like whenever cocoa season came up. Struggling to find money to buy cocoa. And the farmers were at the mercy of money lenders and things like that. And I got to Cocoa Board, my boss then was Flight Lieutenant Joy Atiemo, retired. And later on, my boss became John Newman, but I'm making reference to Joy Atiemo because he was the one who I worked with, and we crafted this celebrated Cocoa Board syndication loan. It's quite unfortunate. We had a lot of resistance from the central bank, who felt Cocoa Board was being turned into a bank. But the obvious truth was that we're incurring too much cost from the kind of structure of finance which existed. Thanks to Professor Kwesi Botwe and Mr. P.V. Obin of blessed memory, and the support of my boss Joy Atiemo, we managed to put in place this structure, which, for me, I'm very proud of it, has survived the test of time for the past 27 years. And that is what has kept the cocoa industry going. Of course, in addition to the reforms that we were privileged to undertake. So I'm not new to the public sector. I'm not new to making big decisions. I'm making this example and also giving this example and also the mode of financing the license buying companies were crafted during this period by myself, my team included Major Ablokwaku, and then our boss, Joy Atiemo. It worked well, and it has worked and served the industry well. I believe there have been modifications, but at least the basic concept, the basic principle has survived the test of time. It is notwithstanding the resistance, we all know the benefit which came from there. Indeed, it's made available, it makes available to government, and any finance minister will be happy. Early receipt of proceeds from cocoa, which had been our major source of foreign exchange until the advent of oil and gas. It also made available enough money readily to pay cocoa farmers, and above all, reduced cocoa board finance cost. You see, so when a new thing is coming, I'm not new, as I've said, to the game, and I think through issues carefully. It's not something I take light at all. This thing that we've put on the table, that we want to drive towards operatorship, is something which has been around for some time, as I've already mentioned. We are giving it the impetus, which is required.
How long has it been around?
Well, when Alex Mould was there, it was there. That's President Mohammed's time. It was there. So at least I've been around for almost 5 years. Mould was there for about 4 years. Nana Safoje was there, my predecessors. Possibly even the main person who started GNPC, Mr. Chachu Chikata. They have all been witnessed. It's been the wish, it's been the desire of every executive, every government, for us to drive in this direction so that we can then take a major chunk in the investment into these blocks. So if the revenues come, you can get a chunk. For now, we get peanuts. On tallow, Jubilee Fells, we're getting something like 13.8%. The rest go to outside investors. And the benefit of the whole operations in terms of procurement, local content and whatnot. How much procurement do we have? We don't have any leeway there. Because we are not the operators. They make the decisions. Our desire to influence is very minimal. So, having been around for about 4 years and having observed the drama, I felt the only way to go was to accelerate this process of becoming an operator. But how do you do it? It means you must have the technology, you must have the money, you must have substantial shares in the blocks.
Okay.
And as I speak now, there are 5 major discoveries which are awaiting development. Springfield, ENI, Vitor, 2 discoveries, that makes it 3. AKER makes it 4, and AGM, Petroleum, makes it 5. You may hear about other things. I've heard about Enrin block containing 500 million barrels. That is false. It's not true. That's why I talk about people getting data. I don't know where they get it from, and then they go about announcing these figures and create confusion. But then the issue is, why AKER?
Exactly.
Why AKER or AGM? Of the 5 discoveries I've mentioned, is AKER that we've done substantial work to date. And for us, if we want to learn, we need to take so many things into account. Springfield is a new block. We've assessed it. We don't think that's where we want to learn from. Ian and Vitor are recent discoveries. We are now going to work with them to see what is in there in more detail and what the program will look like. AGM and AKER blocks, we've been working with them over the last almost 3 years.
Okay.
So we know what is there, we know the work we've done with them. Somebody will ask, but they came recently, you relinquish your shares. Why
exactly the point, you relinquish your share.
Why
24%. So.
No, you see, sometimes when people talk, the 24% was a commercial interest being held by Espluqua at the time. The question is...
That's a subsidiary of GNPC.
Yes, the question is, at that time, did you have the money to put in there?
Did you have the money?
We didn't have. You see, so you're going to look at the dynamics of the business. What has changed? I think the drive towards the move, this move, what has driven this move, has come from what we call the energy transition. Well, it started, there were a bit of noises here and there. But over the last 2 years, you can see from the actions of the oil majors that they want to leave this country. They don't want to put money, cigar money into investment into fossil fuel extraction, production. They want to go into renewables. They want to go into sustainable energy. But the contradiction here is that though they don't want to be doing more investment in fossil fuels, oil and gas, they are mining coal in their countries.
But this thing was known a very long time ago.
Yeah, but then, you see, it's having the courage to confront.
Yeah, but it was known before we decided to relinquish our stake.
You see, you are not, when they came in with their plan that they wanted to develop, when they acquired Hess, one of the considerations was one having a bigger stake so that, and interestingly, normally when they have bigger stakes, you try to see how best you can arrange farming arrangement, do farming arrangements so that other investors can come in. I mean, there are some of the considerations. I would advise government, well, let them have a bigger stake. If we really want to have accelerated development, then in that case, they get a bigger stake, they can bring in other investors at a later stage. You see, we need to distinguish between participating interest and commercial interest. The ex-local interest in AGM was a commercial interest. What we did was to trade it for a participating interest, a carried interest. But that commercial interest will mean that from day one, from exploration, appraisal, what have you, you needed to pay. But if you have a carried interest, you see, you wait. They'll carry you till production starts and you start to pay them. See, that is the difference. The point with commercial interests is that you need to find the money at all times. If you default along the line, you can lose your equity.
So you didn't have the money at the time?
We didn't have the money. You see,
they wanted more stake in it at the time?
More stake, so that they'll be able to do the development.
Good. Now, what has changed?
No. You see, that's why I say you look at the dynamics of the environment. You look at when the energy transition started, I started looking at these companies and what their perspectives are. Let me be honest with you. When I saw that AKER had formed 3 renewable companies, 3 companies to deal with wind, solar, and whatnot, it was quite obvious to me that even if they were going to proceed to develop, they would do it at a slower pace. And then we are not involved anyway. They are the operators. We are only spectators. We go to the meetings, yes, but they may call the shots. So it's my view that, look, you are more advanced. I've assessed the 5 of that, I think about 4 that I had. Recent one came, I mean, one of the ENR ones came, discoveries came recently. I had assessed the thing and I said, look, from the way things are going, to me, my feeling is that these people may not help us to accelerate development.
So is the fear of acceleration of development
lack of acceleration.
The fear of lack of acceleration
of development.
Development is what has got GNPC to
That is
involved.
one reason.
Okay.
Yes. Then the other reason is these are the blogs that we have been involved. We've done a lot of work with them. We know the blog, that if we want to make the move. So you see, when people talk, really as chief executive, that was my decision, to consult them and say, look, how about we joining you in a big way, so that we learn the ropes and one day we become a stand-alone operator.
So my question then would be, at the time when they wanted a lot more stake, you didn't have the money. You don't have the money today. Yeah,
we don't have the money. We never had a sense that we could. You see, if the energy transition thing hadn't been heightened, I don't think that anybody perhaps would have that sense. And especially when ExxonMobil decided to leave. After making discovery, they assessed it and they said, oh, they thought it wasn't, from their risk expectation, it wasn't something that they were particularly interested, so they wanted to leave. That was a clear signal. And I have lots of notes about statements made by Total, made by BP, made by Shell, made by ENI, these big boys, suggesting that over the next 10 years or so, they will reduce investments into fossil fuel.
Okay, so I just want to get something clear. Now, at the time, you didn't have money. You don't have money today. You're going to Parliament. You're asking government to help you. Why didn't you do it back then?
Well, I said the desire to do it, you know, you make a decision, you reflect over issues. You look at the circumstances of the time before you land. And I think that at that time, I hadn't come to that grips, that situation that I thought I'll be able to make that proposal. I'll be very honest with you. I'm a courageous executive. If I felt at that time I had that sense that it was possible, that could be done, I'm sure maybe I would have gone to government and say, hey, wait a minute. But you see, you also have to assess the strength to see what can be done. Now I've run the institution for nearly 5 years. I believe I know what I'm talking about. I'm very convinced that this is the path to go for our country if we are really, you know, we are really prepared to take a greater chunk of these investments. It wasn't a suggestion from AKER. That's how I'll be honest with you.
The other concern is the cost.
Of what?
The amount that is being proposed.
As what?
As, the amount that being proposed as we're going to pay for it. Now, while we're in negotiation, and we've said we're not done with negotiations, we just went for approval from Parliament also to negotiate. The concern from civil society is we're starting a negotiation by demanding also from Parliament a certain amount. It looks like we know how much we want to acquire this.
No, I don't think anybody knows. GNPC, in our assessments, we have done only a valuation. We know the value of the resources from the work we have done. We know valuation offered by other experts. We know valuation of reached by AKER AGM themselves. What we have done is to tell government that these are the blocks that we think perhaps some good progress has been made in terms of knowing what is there, in terms of trying to, in terms of strategy for development, and also the people behind are the people who have that kind of expertise that we think we will need. One point I need to mention is that the expertise required is deep water production. We need to get it from those who have that expertise. One of them, because they have deep water production in the Norwegian basin. They have it. One field produces about 220,000 barrels a day. It's no mean achievement. So, and then obviously you look at the Ghana basin, the discoveries we are all finding are in deep water. So you don't go to a shallow water producer to go and learn deep water production.
Based on your valuation, based on your own assessments, what's the valuation you arrived at?
Well, GNPC on his own, I need to check the figures. Our valuation, after adjusting for a few things, our valuation is in the neighborhood of about 2.009 billion. If we would add both the contingent and the prospects.
Of the total field?
Of the field, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to see, no, that's the AKER portion.
AKER portion
of it, of the field. So you then will want to see if we are acquiring, what will be our portion of it. Yeah. AKER itself put the valuation around 3 billion. They are sellers, so obviously they will use their assumptions. But they are independent people, independent assessors. They had commissioned 2 of them, and they put a valuation around between 2.2 2.5 billion. Then we jointly commissioned Lambert Energy Advisory, and they put a valuation around 2.55 billion. You see, so with valuation, if you bring 100 experts, depending on the assumptions and their perspectives, they will all give you different figures. So that is how we've arrived at these figures. You see, we are the buyers, so obviously our valuation will be pessimistic as possible compared with AKER's own valuation. So all of us will have to depend on independent valuation. And the one we use was Lambert, which gave us about 2.55 billion as the AKER portion of the field. You know, so.
And that's what we're using now?
Well, that is a guide. Valuation is only a guide. The valuation is, you know, we had the other 3, AKER zone, GNP zone. So those who are going to negotiate, the ministers will have access to this data, and they will be in a position to see if they can,
now,
arrive at a figure.
You did your valuation.
Yes.
That's 2 billion.
Yes.
Lambert says 2.55 billion.
Yes.
Now, based on your valuation, and you've done your valuation that says it's 2 billion, based on your valuation and based on Lambert's valuation, you should be saying, well, based on our valuation, this is it. So the point of negotiation starts with our valuation.
Well, but we haven't done negotiation. You see, that's the
yes,
problem.
But as we go into the negotiation, you're starting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Valuation.
That is what I'm saying. That we're going to have all this range of values with various assumptions. Valuation is an art. People will come with different bases. It's just like property valuation. Bring 100 people, they'll give you different values. You see, you're not going to get one exact figure, but they give you various scenarios, and there you start negotiating. It's not only that, your own perspective as to whether the risk assessment is right or wrong and things like that. We'll put you in a situation where you'll be able to decide that maybe my starting point is this. I don't think we have said that we are going to buy at our valuation. We haven't said that. The ministers will go and then make a point, and then that will be the basis for the negotiations. And then they will arrive at a figure which both parties will then can affirm, and that will be the conclusion, bring finality to it.
And civil society has raised concerns about even the valuation.
Who?
Civil society organizations have raised
concerns. Are they expressing valuation?
Have raised concerns. I mean, the likes of Theo Champon said, based on his analysis, we shouldn't be buying this for, we shouldn't be valuing this for more than $600 million.
Well, that is his view. He's one of the valuers that I think. That's why I say if we bring 100 people, but what ought to be the situation? You can conjure any number. You can be unscientific, but you say that is your valuation. If I have about 6 experts and they've done the valuation, who is a champion's valuation? Where is he coming from? If he says his valuation is 600 million, you want to ask him where he's coming from. And indeed, if the others are giving you over 2 billion and he says it's 600, then obviously his is an outlier. That statistically will be unacceptable. It's an outlier.
Right. You've talked about getting the Bank of America to also do some work.
Who?
I mean, I've seen some government officials saying they're beyond the Lambert that was asked, I mean, jointly commissioned by you. You're going to do further evaluations. You're aware of that?
Well, I am. There's nothing wrong with that.
So you're going to do further
Well, it's the ministers who are negotiating, so they can do the evaluation. Mind you, we have not said that the price should be 1.1 or 1.6. We haven't said that. We've given it to the ministers. They would also get their independent assessment, get some experts to also advise, and then at the end of the day, we'll come to a certain level that a deal will be struck. If a deal cannot be struck, it falls apart. There's nothing wrong with that. We are desirous. We want to do it. Say, ministers, government, help us. I need to say that we need to commend the government. It's a bold decision. If you don't make such decisions, you cannot transform the country. How? You see, people come from a champion man you are talking about, say 600 million. And I'm saying that, well, if his figure is the correct figure, then maybe all the others were wrong. But that would be some kind of, it would be interesting to find out why all the others got it wrong. But not certain that anybody has any special interest. We want to get the best results as possible from these valuations so that the ministers can make a decision.
Great. Let's get into other issues. We're looking at the prospects also of these wells, for instance. There's these fields.
Yeah.
What are the prospects?
Significant prospects in the AGM block. Very, 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 very massive. You see, in doing valuations, the risk put on prospects tend to be very high. Even in our case, just for AGM block, what prospects? Maybe just a small amount has been included in the valuation. I can't tell the figures offhand. But I said contingent. Contingent means we have really done the appraisal, we are very certain of the possible numbers. Prospects will need some further work to be done. So even if they are massive, the experts have a way of putting a value. Put a very high risk profile on it and get a small value and put in the valuation.
So more would have to be done when it comes to the prospecting?
Well, a lot more will have to be done. That's why you normally use a small percentage of prospects in your valuation.
So the other question that has come up is, in buying, I mean, in investing in these, I mean, in acquiring shares, for instance, how do we know this is value for money? Because we'd use the prospects and we use that to judge and say, based on these, we expect to make this over the life of the field. Do we have that?
Oh yes, I mean that is the basis of the valuation. Our valuation is based on a 20-year life of the field.
With estimated how many barrels?
Well, year in year estimation is there. Normally you start from a low level, it peaks, and then it comes down.
So based on your valuation, based on your analysis, what figures are we looking at?
From whose analysis?
GNPC's.
I'm not using GNPC. I've given you the GNPC figure. I've given you the other figures.
I mean, number of barrels, I mean, estimated.
Oh, well, we have those figures. Let me get them for you.
Yes.
Per each field, I think we have, where are the assumptions? We have, I think they all used about 547 million barrels. GNPC, we used 450, a difference of about 95 million barrels. That's our figure is low. But if all the others believe that the figure is like this, and you alone, you say your figure is like this, of course, as a buyer, I want a lower valuation as possible. But I think that what we have done is, what we have done is in GNPC to be as conservative as possible. That's why when the others are using 547, we are using a figure less than about 95 million million barrels less. How reasonable. So even my own figures, I need to tweak it a bit. I need to make adjustment so I can align with the others. In every valuation, people will use the operator figures. At the time that these figures came up, nobody knew that we were going to make a bid one day. That is one assurance. At the time that we all flagged the figures from the field, nobody expected that there would be a bid along the line.
This is Upfront on the JoyNews channel, and this evening we're joined by Dr. KK Sapong, who is the CEO of GNPC. And we're talking about the GNPC AKER AGM deal. There's been lots of questions about it, and we're getting answers to these questions. When we return after these messages, we continue with the conversation. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Right, so welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us here on Upfront on the JoyNews channel, where this evening we're joined by Dr. KK Sapong. We're in his house. We're speaking to him about the GNPC AKER AGM deal. We want to understand and get answers to the questions that have been raised. Yes, before we went for the break, we're talking about, the estimated number of barrels. You have the documents now.
Yeah,
Share them with us.
Yes. All the other, apart from GNPC, all the others use 547 million barrels as a volume to be extracted. GNPC used 452 million. And it is because GNPC decided not to include Pecan Phase 2 in the valuation. But we can always make adjustments and see whether we all align.
Why did you decide not to include that?
Oh, well, it's a technical assessment. But you see, we need to admit we are not the operators. Normally, you go on operator figures if you are doing valuation. But I mean, GNPC, my staff say that this one is a bit problematic. Let us play it down. But it doesn't change whatever much, the value so much. I'm
interested in a bit problematic. What was a bit problematic?
No. When they think that perhaps a Pecan Phase 2 field will be more profitable when we have a high price oil price regime. That was the basis, and nothing more. And if I'm assessing the energy transition to see that maybe demand may outstrip along the line production, because not many investments will be done. Then maybe I can predict a high price regime and then use that as a basis for my assessment.
When they say unless prices are high, is that an indication that there isn't much in there?
There's much in there, but it's also about, you see, the profitability is both cost and revenue issue.
Yes.
Presumably you need to spend more to develop certain fields. That's the technical assessment. But it would be quite weird for all experts to say so, but then we alone have our doubts, significant doubts. And this is happening because we are the buyer. We want to depress the price as much as possible.
Okay. So you have a bit of doubts there. I mean, because you have to spend more, presumably more, before you could get in there.
Yeah.
Now, one of the issues that have come up also is when it comes to the AGM block or AGM field. Has it been appraised?
It hasn't. You see, historically in this country, and I think the facts are there, you can check everywhere. You know, normally when people make discoveries, the figures put out there tend to be very conservative. When appraisals are done, all the appraisals done in this country, all of them, unless of course there's one I don't know, the outcome of the oil in place tends to be higher. So if I'm using the original figure put there, I don't have any doubt at all. Because when it's appraised, it will be higher. But nobody can say that without appraisal, you cannot make a valuation. You can do valuation.
What if this turns out to be an outlier?
Which is an outlier?
Because, I mean, all the appraisals have shown higher returns, but this one departs from all the appraisals.
Yes, so it's a risk assessment you put in the valuation would depend what kind of value you put on that block. You cannot tell me zero. You can't say so.
What value did you put on that?
Well, I can't tell offhand. I need to break the two figures. I don't have them offhand.
Great. And talking about figures, so the negotiations are about to begin now. You see, the ministers are the ones going to do the negotiations.
Sure.
You wouldn't be part of it?
Maybe background staff. When ministers are negotiating, we give them support, but we won't make decisions for them.
So do you have a rough idea of how much all of this would cost you?
What do you mean by what?
So, I mean, what I mean is that in acquiring 37% stake in AKER Energy, 70% in AGM's field, based on your assessment, based on the valuation that you've done, you should have an idea of how much it would cost you.
I'm not the one going to negotiate.
I know, but
I'm not the one. I mean, you can't tease that out of me. It means I'll be deciding for my ministers. They are going to put a lot of factors into account, take them into account before deciding how much they want to pay. You see, so what we have done is to say the resources there are valued like this. It doesn't mean I should pay that amount. If I can get it for a bargain, why not? Yeah, but for us, we don't have a figure. Parliament has said that at any rate, they shouldn't bid more than $1.1 billion for those for the resources available.
Yes. Now, the original agreement that went to Parliament for approval was 1.3 billion. So that clearly suggests an idea of how much we want to invest.
It's not GNPC which sent that one there. It's government.
Yes.
I don't know what went into their decision. But I think maybe it's a strategy to have a wider leeway so that you'll be able to negotiate. I think maybe that was...
You're an accountant of repute. If you're on the other side and you realize that this is the amount being sought as approval, possible approval for commencement of negotiations, how would you approach the negotiation?
Well, I need to be there to understand the circumstance before I have a strategy. I'm not there yet.
But at least you know an amount.
No, I don't know any amount. I know what Parliament
issues in our Parliament is
public
notice.
Please. Parliament, in its wisdom, They are not novices. That's a parliamentary committee. They are experts. They also rely on experts. They are saying that even though you want to have a 1.3, we are saying that no, have 1.1 and go and try. Do your best. Maybe it will be lower. But they don't want you to exceed. Maybe they don't want to give the ministers too much comfort. They should go and do hard negotiation and come back and tell them. I think there's nothing wrong with that.
And some say when you have that, and if I am on the other side, I know at least I could get 1.1 billion, I'll stand firm.
Well, if you are prepared to sell, you need to relax your position. I'm a hard negotiator. If I'm there with you and I believe maybe I can get it cheaper, I'll push for it.
You don't know whether you're going to be there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, when I'm talking about being part of the negotiation, as for doing my work, I'm there. I'm the CEO now.
Yes, I know, but I mean, being part of the negotiation, you don't know whether you'd be there.
Oh, no, but if they are going to do negotiations, we give them the background support. I may not sit in the room, or I may sit there, but I may not have a voice. I can only advise. And normally you scribble something and give to your minister. You don't interject. It's not the right way to do negotiations when you have the bosses there.
So for you, this is the way to go. You think if we want to get a lot from our petroleum resources, this is the way to go. Before, you answer that. Over the 20 years of the field that you have projected, based on your projections also when it comes to money, how much, all things being equal, can be generated from our acquisition of these, of our buying of stake in these?
You see, we have indicated the value of the resources that we are acquiring. If you acquire it at a discount, this is a discounted cash flow analysis, figure over 20 years. We are not talking about nominal figures. The figures we put here are discounted cash flow. And if the resources that we have now assembled with focus on will cost 2 billion, and you buy it for 1 billion, then at least effectively you should be making 1 billion profit. So the valuation is a guide. And that is why I believe the ministers will push hard. Aside of that, then you have the field under your control. You can do further exploration, appraisals, find more oil, and you appropriate that to yourself. So you see, at a point in time that we are making this decision, what analysis we've analyzed it based on some of the data we think reasonable to be used in the analysis. As we move forward, there will be further exploration, there will be further appraisal. Like I mentioned in the AGM report, in the AGM account, there the prospects are very huge. So if you do more exploration, do more appraisal, you may be adding on more barrels. And the more you add, the more returns you're going to get.
So for the Ghanaian, he would look at the fact that over the past 11 years of exploration, commercial exploration of petroleum in the country, the state has had some $7 billion. And we want to find out, okay, so if we're going to go for this, within the next 20 years, how much will be accruing to Ghana?
We can compute that. I think I can't call when I haven't seen figures, I don't conjure them. We can have another session. I will come with all these figures to tell you how much will come in royalties, how much will come in taxes, how much will come in foreign exchange return, how much profit will be made by Exploco. And with that, we'll be able to give you a very comprehensive, composite data. But for the work we've done so far, it's still profitable to move.
And so you're moving?
We must move.
Because AKER Energy is willing to sell? AGM willing to sell?
Well, when the price is right, I'm sure they'll sell. I'm sure they'll sell. You see,
aren't we sounding desperate?
Why are we desperate? We are not. We are not desperate. I'm surprised we are going on that route. We are not desperate at all. We say we want to be operator. I've explained to you that with the 5 discoveries we have, that is where we've done substantial work. And if we really want to travel that journey, that is where we must start. We must have them willing. So far, indications, but maybe the sweetness of the pudding lies in its eating. When we get to negotiations, maybe, who knows, they may back off.
Some of the questions that have come up as well, their willingness to sell, and they say, well, they're willing to sell because maybe they know something you don't know.
May be true, it may not be true. I cannot imagine, but from what I know that if we become an operator with them, we'll learn something. We'll be able to do the production. We'll bring in more resources to Ghana. It's as simple as that.
What's the challenge with Erin's, field?
Erin, I heard somebody said 500 million. Where did he get that figure from? I sit in GNPC. If Erin had 500 million barrels, I'm sure people have gone there to develop. We've had it all along. Erin, 500 million barrels from where? Please don't let us throw dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. Erin is not a candidate for what I'm looking at all.
Why are they not?
But what do they have?
What do they have?
It's, what I know, some 40, 50 million barrels. It's not worth commercial extraction.
Finally, so for the Ghanaian watching us this evening, he's asked himself, in the long run, would this be in the interest of Ghana?
Well, we need to take a first step. If we don't, we'll not realize the benefits. That's what I'll say. If we shy away, it will be a lost opportunity. Are we going to stay as we are? The status quo shouldn't change. If that is the case, then forget about making good money from the oil and gas resources. We leave it to these foreigners. You see, look at Petronas in Malaysia, Petrobras, Bras in Brazil, and Pemex in Mexico. They started as NOC like ours. They took advantage, made bold decisions, and now they are major forces to reckon with. If we don't do that, we'll never have money to be investing in these blocks. We just continue to just take a small stake. The rest go outside the country. But the most painful aspect is even the procurement issues. The kind of activities which can be done. Because we don't control it, we get little. How has the oil impacted us? How many of our businesses are big enough or strong and doing major business, major transactions? Everything's coming from us outside because we are not the operators. And you know, if you're a multinational company, we studied multinational corporations. They use their transfer pricing, their related parties to significant advantage. And that is where we are. I believe we should commend the government if they've seen the wisdom in what GNPC is proposing. We should commend them. Because you need a bold leader to be able to take some of these decisions. Because everybody is skeptical. Everybody is worried. I keep saying that the man who awarded the first degree, who gave him a degree? The one who says you have a bachelor's. The first one which was awarded. Did he have a bachelor's?
No.
He didn't. But he decided to confer one on you because he was in a position to be able to do so by creating that enabling environment for him to be able to do that. There's this talk about AKER spent only 100 million and they are taking all these monies away. I don't know, it's a major issue that the CEOs, SOs have been mentioning. And I think it's important we go into that.
Go ahead.
Yes.
What's
Yes.
your response to that?
No, it's a lie. They don't have the facts. My project finance manager is called Anthony Ampofo. They should go to him, he'll give him the figures. Yes, they would have paid whatever in the 2 blocks plus registration, maybe $160 million. But they themselves have spent nearly $400 million, verifiable figures, on exploration, appraisal, and drilling of wells. That one, we don't want to know. We go and conjure our own figures and come and confuse the public. When you add that 400 to the 160 or so, that alone gives you 560 million. The other costs they have incurred. Apart from that, the work they've done have added about 267 million barrels of oil to the already discovered resources. At $60 per barrel, that works to about $16 billion that they have added, that kind of value. Even if you do production, and at the end of the day, the net results coming to you is only $1 billion. That's some significant value. So we need to be fair to our listeners, those who consume what we say, by giving them the right kind of information. There's no need to distort. We are making a decision, and I say it's a Ghana project. It's not NPP or NDC project. It's a Ghana project. We want to move ahead that way so that we can capture a greater portion of the resources.
Talking about, I mean, haven't gotten everything around, 160, spent almost more than about 400 million. You're giving us an idea of how much all of this may cost us.
No, I'm telling you that those figures put out there are not correct.
Okay.
So we need to correct them.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Folks, that'll be all from us this evening on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. Make sure you catch us same time next week, Wednesday. My name is Winston, and I'll be on the Super Morning Show tomorrow at 5:50 a.m. Have a lovely evening.